Hello, in this video, we're going to be talking about areas and circumference. So, to be honest with you, the last two videos are going to be very heavy on the formula aspect. So, we're just going to go through some of the formulas here. We're going to learn how to apply them, and then we're going to basically, the big part is understanding the units of measure. All right. So, first, let's talk about area. All right. Now, the most famous object or the most famous shape that we always introduce when we're talking about area, okay, would be a rectangle. And the area of a rectangle is length times width, where you can make this L and this W, or you can swap them. It doesn't matter. The most important thing is that you just put the numbers where they belong. That's the most important part. All right. The other formula that we know, this is a very special rectangle. It's called a square. And the area of a square is s to the second power, because what makes a square so special is that all the sides of a square are the same exact length. So a quick easy example would be something like this. Find the area for the shape below. All right, and we're just going to do a little rectangle. We're going to make this 6 inches, and we'll make this 5 inches. Okay, now, this is straightforward. Area is going to equal 5 times 6, which is 30. All right, but now we need the units, and this is the most important part when it comes to finding area. For areas, units are always going to be raised to the second power. All right. Another way to say this would be something like area equals 30 square inches, or 30 inches squared. It's the same exact thing. Okay. But like I said, the most important part is that whenever you were talking about areas, we are talking about units raised to the second power. So area units are always raised to the second power. All right, regardless of the shape, okay? The next formula we're going to learn would be the area of a parallelogram. So let me just write this out real fast. And a parallelogram looks like this. All right, it's a very special quadrilateral where it kind of looks like a rectangle that's like being pushed. Now, we have one special unit, which is right here. We call this H. And then the bottom of this is going to be B. But since this is a quadrilateral, in other words, it's a four-sided shape, our area is still going to be base times height, and whatever the units are, make sure you raise them to the second power. So an example would be something like this. Here we have 2 feet, and then we have 10 feet, okay? The area would be 2 times 10 feet squared, which turns out to be 20 feet squared. The next shape we're going to look at would be the area of a trapezoid. All right, and a trapezoid looks like this. It has 2 parallel sides, and that's it. Now, there's a special measurement here. It's right down here. We call that H. And if you notice here, we have 2 parallel sides that are not the same length. So we're going to call the bottom of it A and then the top of it B. So the area for a trapezoid is going to be 1/2 times the height times the quantity of A plus B. So an example using this formula would be something like this. All right, so we're going to make this height 13 feet. We're going to make this length 32 feet. And this length 46 feet. So at the end of the day, all we have to do is just make the proper substitutions. So area equals 1/2 times the height, which is 13, times the quantity of 32 plus 46 feet squared. And then from here, if you just add and then multiply and then divide by 2. So we're going to add the inside. So 32 plus 46 is going to be 78. So 1/2 times 13 times 78 square feet. And when you multiply this all out, you end up with 507 square feet. Now the last, not the last shape, but the last rigid shape that we're going to look at would be the area of a triangle. Now, if I asked you to figure this one out on your own, chances are you probably would. It might take you a little bit of time. But the area of a triangle is going to be 1/2 times the base times the height. Oops. And that would be the area of a triangle, which, if you kind of look at this real fast, notice I could draw like another triangle on top of it, which now I've created a rectangle. We know the area of a rectangle is side times the side, or base times the height. But since you cut the rectangle in half, now you have a triangle, and that's exactly where the 1/2 in this formula comes from. So real quick, let's go ahead and do this right here. Actually, we'll do this one. We'll do this triangle. All right. So the base is going to be 12 inches, and then the height, just extend that out, the height is going to be 12 inches as well. So area is going to equal 1/2 times the base times the height, inches squared. So area here would be 12 times 12 is 144, divided by 2 would be 72 inches squared. Okay, the last shape that we're going to be talking about, and this is the second half of this section, is going to be a circle. So we're going to talk about its circumference and its area. Now, first things first. The circumference is the perimeter of a circle. So if somebody ever asked you what is the circumference, you say it's just the perimeter of the circle. In fact, if you kind of look at this like bad drawing that I have, if I took a circle and I cut it right here, and then I grabbed this side and like started pulling them down, notice you would end up with a straight line, which is perimeter. That's how we measure lengths, okay? So that's the perimeter, or circumference is the perimeter of a circle. There are two formulas that we use to find their circumference. So circumference of a circle, and here are the formulas right here. Now, there's some things I need to go over here first. Here's my circle. Try to draw a better one. There we go. This distance from the middle of the circle out is called the radius. All right? That is the letter R. If you were to take the radius and extend it from one side of the circle all the way to the other side of the circle, then we call that the diameter. So D stands for diameter. And there is a relationship between diameter and radius, all right? The diameter equals 2 times r, or 2 times the radius. That's why we have these two formulas. See, in the first formula, we have circumference equals, that symbol is called pi. I'll go over that in a second. But it's circumference equals pi times diameter, or if you take 2 times r, you end up with a diameter all over again. So you can use either of these formulas to find their circumference. I guess the best thing to do is whatever units they give you, that's the units you stick with. Now we need to talk about this symbol right here in the middle. We'll use a different color. And that's going to be pi. All right. Pi is a very special number. It's so special that it got its own symbol. If you were to take the circumference of any circle and you were to divide it by its diameter. So let me write out these words. So the circumference divided by its diameter of any circle, it will always equal this number that we call pi. Now, you do have a pi button on your calculator. So let me get out my calculator here. All right, so here's our calculator. Now, my pi button is going to be right above this exponent button here, which is in the very last column on the far right side. So I hit second, and here is pi. And when I hit enter, we get this number right here. So I'm going to copy and paste this number into our notes. All right, so let me do this real fast. There we go. And the reason why I want to bring this number in here is because we consider this number right here to be an approximation. See, pi is one of those weird numbers where you may think that the very final number on the far right-hand side is the number 4, but it is actually not 4. It keeps going and going and going forever. We call that an irrational number. All right? So we need to be very careful when we are using these formulas. And that's because we get an approximation. So for us, we're going to use pi equal to, or approximately, we'll use 3.14. But even still, we have to be very careful, all right? So what I want to do here is an example where we're going to be using pi, okay? And I'm going to show you what this actually means, all right? Because your book kind of goes over this, but it doesn't really go over it a lot. Let's look at an example. So we want to find circumference for the circle. Now, here's our circle right here. And it has a diameter of 15 yards. Okay? Now, in the homework, the first question it's going to say is, part A, find the circumference in terms of pi. Now, what this means is they are looking for what we like to call an exact answer. Meaning, when we go ahead and we use our formula, in this case, I'm going to use C equals pi times the diameter. The only thing I'm going to do is make my substitution in for the diameter. So circumference equals 15 times pi. All right, my diameter here is 15 yards. And the units, because this is a length, remember, perimeter is a length, it's going to be yards to the first power, which, you know, we don't have to write the 1 up front or up top if we don't want to. But this is what we call an exact answer, which is in terms of pi. We actually do not multiply out the number pi. We just leave it there. It's like it comes along for the ride. Now, the second response is going to be, find the circumference rounded to the nearest tenth. All right? This is where you're going to use 3.14 for pi. All right? So this is where you actually have to use 3.14. And whenever we take 15 and we multiply it by 3.14, we get 47.1 yards. So that is the difference. All right? One answer or one result is what we call an exact answer. In terms of pi. The other one is what we call an approximation. And that's like the biggie. That's the big thing we got to know when we're talking about circles and pi. All right? So there's our circumference. Now we got to worry about the area of a circle. So the area of a circle is going to be pi r squared. And since this is area, remember the units are raised to the second power. So find the area, or better yet, let me write it like this. Find the exact area of the shape above. So if you remember, we had a circle with a diameter equal to 15 yards. Our formula for area is pi r squared, which means we actually have to take our diameter and divide it by 2 to get the radius. Because remember, the formula is pi r squared, and I gave you the diameter. So 15 divided by 2 is 7.5, which is our radius. That looks terrible. So 7.5, which is our radius. And since the problem says find the exact area, all we have to do is just substitute in pi times 7.5 to the second power. So we're going to figure out what 7.5 is to the second power. So 7.5 times 7.5 is going to be 56.25 pi yards squared. And that would be the exact area for a circle. And that's it for this video. See you in the next one.